Kai Sotto, the towering Filipino basketball sensation, has captivated the world with his extraordinary height and undeniable talent on the court. Standing at 7 foot 3 inches, his imposing stature immediately grabs attention. But beyond his impressive physical attributes, questions arise about the true extent of his basketball prowess. As a rising star in the Philippines basketball scene, Kai Sotto's potential has garnered widespread interest, with many wondering if he possesses the skills to compete at the highest level. Join me today as we deep dive and dissect the all-important question: just how good is Kai Sotto actually? What if I told you that some NBA teams are just one Kai Sotto away from being legitimate championship favorites? Well, you'd call me a liar, and while we can debate that all day, it isn't too far off from the truth. You see, when it comes to player comparisons for Kai Sotto, the player who he resembles the most at this point is Kristaps Porzingis, the Latvian star, and as we all know by now, ever since being acquired by the Celtics, Boston has become the favorites to win it all. Yeah, I ain't kidding. The addition of Porzingis has Vegas putting all their chips on the ones wearing green. And with this in mind, we gotta ask ourselves the question: what is it about Porzingis that, at least according to Vegas, really pushes the Celtics over the top? Well, several things immediately come to mind. 7'3" with a 7'6" wingspan, the ability to knock down the three, the ability to run in pick and rolls, the ability to play in the post, and, of course, grab rebounds and protect the rim. That sounds about right. Am I right, or am I right? Well, the scary truth about that is, Kai Sotto can do all those things too. I mean, if you just hop on YouTube, you'll immediately see what I'm talking about. He's not at the level which Porzingis is at just yet because of the number of years Kristaps has played in the league, but give Sotto 1 or 2 years in the NBA for development and the similarities could be frightening. Anyway, as we all know by now, Sotto eventually did go undrafted when he declared for the league in 2022, but the reasoning of scouts and reporters was because his body simply wasn't NBA ready yet. All isn't lost though. At this point in time, an inspirational aim for Sotto should be to follow the path of Yuta Watanabe. The 6'8" Japanese power forward also went undrafted in 2018 and didn't play his first NBA game until he was 24 years of age. And just like Sotto, the main knock on him at the draft was the lack of strength for his position. But through grit and grind, he eventually got stronger, earned a two-way contract in the league, contributed whenever his number was called, and look at him now. Although he's been on the wrong end of a few highlight dunks, he's now become a coveted 3-and-D player that many championship teams would love to have. Now, I ain't saying that Sotto, at 7'3", should aim to be a 3-and-D player because that's ridiculous. But if he builds up his body just a bit more, improves his game a little here, a little there, then because of his height and stature, he could really become an integral piece of a championship team. I mean, just think about it. A 7'3" unicorn who has a near unblockable jumper, who could rim run and finish above the rim, who has a soft touch around the basket, and who can also block and alter shots? Sheesh, guys. That sounds exactly like the type of player which the Golden State Warriors could use, even if it's just for like 10 to 15 minutes per game. And speaking of 10 to 15 minutes per game, so Kai Sotto played in the Australian League where, in 2 seasons, averaged just 7 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 0.8 blocks. But the thing is, that was on very limited action of just 14 minutes per game. Adjusting for 36 minutes, the Filipino star is putting up averages of about 18 points, 12 boards, and 2 blocks, which isn't anything to laugh about. I mean, in 2019, Andrew Bogut, the former Warriors champion, had a per 36-minute statistic of 14 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 blocks, which also won him the MVP of the NBL that year. Numbers don't tell the whole story, but they often tell a huge chunk of it, and those are very similar numbers to Kai's. Anyway, as of now, it's quite reasonable to say that Kai is one consistent three-point shot away from being picked up by an NBA team. While in the NBL, he did shoot 38% one season, it was just 5 for 13 from the floor, which doesn't quite have enough volume to determine how reliable it is. But just from watching him play, the form is definitely there, and I can see him becoming a weapon. I mean, just look at these.
3 away from that double-double. Foul is going to be called against Daquan Joe. Look.
And they don't have great angles to get it to him quickly.
So, as we all just witnessed, the shot is definitely there, so the only thing he really has to do now is get more comfortable with it in games, and that's done by getting more minutes and watching film. Anyway, pivoting the topic slightly, some people believe that because Kai went undrafted and played 2 years in Australia and 1 year in Japan, that he's too old for the league now. But that's preposterous and so far off from the truth. You see, as of today, the kid is just 21 years old, which is actually the same age as Chet Holmgren, who, as we all know, was the number 2 overall pick back in 2022, and who was Team USA's counter to Victor Wembanyama when the US played France in international competitions. Honestly, at this point, the only reason why Sotto isn't in the league is unfortunately because of the pandemic. You might have heard that he actually signed with the G League at one point, but because of travel restrictions, the two had no choice but to mutually part ways. But imagine the type of development he would have gotten if he averaged 30+ minutes per game in the G League. Especially since, like I said, that experience is his greatest weakness at this point. It's really unfortunate that he's not getting heavy minutes internationally either. 14 minutes per game in Australia and 19 minutes per game in Japan is what the 7'3" center averaged abroad. This is why it's really unfortunate that the pandemic prevented him from playing in the G League, because that's the perfect place to rack up minutes and work on development because, as we can all see from the highlights, the skills are there. Everything from the three-point shot to the mid-range to the post to shot blocking, it's all there. But at this point, he just needs more on-court experience to put everything together at the highest level. But anyway, when it comes to joining the NBA, he'll probably get picked up in a year or two, and for good reasons. First off, he actually is a very talented player with the physical attributes needed to succeed at the highest levels. He could work on his strength perhaps a bit, build a bit of explosiveness, but there's no denying that he has what it takes to at least be effective coming off the bench for like 10 to 15 minutes per game. And second, he's a megastar that will draw eyes from Asia, and in particular, the Philippines. As we all know, the NBA is a business, and as a business, their main priority is to keep the revenue column as high as possible. And what better way to do that than to recruit one of the biggest international names out there? So, as of now, I see Kai Sotto playing perhaps 1 more year abroad at the most before finally making his way into the NBA. It might start off as a 10-day contract or a 2-way spot on a roster, but once he gets into the developmental programs of some of the better organizations in the league, gets a bit stronger in the post, and develops that consistent 3-ball, the sky is the limit. Some people may say I'm crazy for this take, but let's look at the facts. I was rooting for the Heat during their 2023 playoff run, and every time I saw Cody Zeller take the floor, I asked myself the question, why? So let's be serious, guys. Sotto can't be any worse than that, right? Then the cherry on top is the fact that he's just 21 years old, hasn't even touched his prime yet, and could probably be acquired on a minimum contract. These days, with teams like the Warriors paying like $1 bazillion into the luxury cap, having a serviceable big man who doesn't hurt the pocketbooks and potentially develop at the same time is like knocking down 2 or 3 birds with one stone. Anyway, what do you guys think? Will Kai Sotto find his way into the NBA sooner than later? Let me know in the comments down below, then click on this video next.